Guys, I love Nicolas Cage. This guy is one of the funniest actors, if not the funniest. I think whether he intends it or whether he doesn't, whether he knows he's in on the joke or whether he doesn't, he's just almost always hilarious. And this film, The Surfer, by Lorcan Finnegan, is so much fun. It is one that very much plays on the Nicolas Cage isms sort of thing, where he is overacting, he's overly serious, his character doesn't know that he just sort of needs to calm down. He very much is in that sort of mindset in this film, and the long and short of it is, if you like Nicolas Cage, you'll love this film. If you don't like Nicolas Cage, you'll probably hate this film. But personally, I think this film is fucking brilliant. Especially that first sort of maybe hour and 10 minutes. This film is on another level in terms of a lot of the stuff I've seen this year. I feel so strongly about this film. I feel like it's already one of the best things I've seen this year. And as of right now, it seems to be going completely under the radar. And it doesn't deserve that. I think it deserves a lot better than the attention it's getting right now. So let's get into this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about mainly Nicolas Cage, because he's about 99% of this film. But let's start off first and foremost with the premise. Nicolas Cage's character is returning to his boyhood home of Australia, some unnamed Australian town. He is attempting to buy a seaside home that lived in as a child. It is long gone from his family. Something has happened down the line where it has fallen out of the ownership of his family, let's say. He now has a child with him that he is returning home, a young teenage boy, his son, and he is trying to buy this house, and he is also wanting to surf on this beach where he's being denied access by these locals. These locals continuously say in an Australian accent that I'm not going to try and do. Don't live here, don't surf here. And that is a thing that is continuously said. That premise, I promise you, it probably sounds like it needs a bit more time to flesh out. That is given to you in about 4 or 5 minutes. What this film understands perfectly is that the audience isn't here to see a complex story. It's not here for something that is going to be fleshed out and is going to have a lot of character background. What we are here for is Nicolas Cage. And I really respect the director and the writer for going, here's the premise, give us 5 minutes, and then boom, we're off. And the rest of the film, basically, is Nicolas Cage. And I really respect them for doing that, for understanding what its focus is, or not attempting to get bogged down in the directing and the writing and the music and all that thing. But instead, from the very opening minutes with this premise, understanding that it is all geared towards Nicolas Cage. If it doesn't benefit and enhance Nicolas Cage's performance, it isn't relevant to what is going on screen, and it should probably just be cut. I would usually talk about the writing, then the acting, then the directing, and then the film writ large. Let's just get into their acting first, because that's the best bit. Yeah, interestingly, when this film first started, I thought I wasn't going to like it. The film opens with Nicolas Cage and his son in a car, and they're talking and having a conversation about, Nicolas Cage wanting to move back here. His son doesn't want to. And I thought I was going to not enjoy this film, because although Nicolas Cage from the start is very good, the actor, very young actor by the looks of it, probably a first time or, just starting out at the very least, I thought he was going to be in the film more than he actually is. And he's only really in it this first scene and then a scene towards the end of the film. And if he had been in the film more, I think I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it because he's just not a very experienced actor. He's not a very good actor yet. That's not to say he can't be. He, like I say, I would say this guy is probably about 15, 16. So, no shade on him. It's just that he sort of bogged down the film. Ultimately, as I will say and explore further on in this review, when we step away from Nicolas Cage's performance in this film, that is when this film is sort of falling flat and comes down a little bit on how hot I actually think this is. The Nicolas Cage isms, in my opinion, are enhanced. And if you watch an interview with Sean Fennessy on Rare Movies, he asked Nicolas Cage, what does he seek in a director now in his, sort of twilight years of his career now. He's 61. And, he asked him, like, what is it you seek? What do you, like, go for when you're looking for a director? Do they come to you, or are you actively hunting directors that you want to work with? And I thought it was interesting that Nicolas Cage said, I actively seek out younger directors who've grown up with my films because I want to see what it is that they pick up on in my characters and what they choose to enhance in their own films. And so if you look at like a film like Pig, which is the first feature film of Michael Sarnowski, that is a much more serious, dramatic role that Nicolas Cage is very good in. And that clearly, I wouldn't know where from, but clearly there was something in Nicolas Cage's performances beforehand that Michael Sarnowski had picked up on and had gone, okay, I want to enhance that and sort of extrapolate and expand it in Pig. And it works very well. In this film, Lorcan Finnegan has picked up on the other side of Nicolas Cage and has picked up on the comedic aspects, the overacting, and almost an attempt to come off as a poor actor, a bad actor, and attempting to be bad. And it is so interesting that he's picked up on that and enhanced it and basically built a film around Nicolas Cage that I don't think could be made with anyone other than Nicolas Cage, where the overacting is so deliberate that oftentimes, like Yorgos Lanthimos's Killing of a Sacred Deer, I feel like the actors are overacting, and that's not to its detriment, that is to its benefit, because it serves the script and it serves the narrative that there is a good chance that what we are watching isn't actually a serious thing. This isn't something that is actually happening. There is a good chance that this is something in the head of Nicolas Cage's character, whether that is in the young man stage of his life, whether that is in the dad's stage of life, or whether that is in the homeless vagrant's stage of his life, or if all three of those characters are something that he has made up in his mind. The reading off of the script and the overacting that Nicolas Cage partakes in this film, and that he is so good in, and has arguably been so good in pretty much all of his life at this point, benefits the script, benefits the film, and makes it feel as if you're watching a fever dream. And I'm not sure there's many actors out there that could do it. I've seen Willem Dafoe talk about this, that actors should attempt to act bad just so that you can see what comes out and that you would actually be very surprised at what came out.
Try to make a bad painting. Try to act badly. Try to be lousy in that scene. It kind of puts the idea of striving for perfection on, it does something.
Yeah.
You've got to find ways to let you not worry and be free,
And it's very interesting that those two actors, who I would argue take on quite different roles, in my opinion, from what I've seen of them, they nevertheless seem to be of the same opinion and are doing similar things on screen. Yes, Nicolas Cage, as I say, is the absolute linchpin of this movie. Without him, the movie would sort of just fall apart. Make no mistake about it, this film is David Lynchian in nature. It is a surrealist experience that I'm not even sure I fully understand, and I'm not really sure I've gotten the message fully. I've taken my own interpretation about it, that this film is about obsession and addiction really more than anything. and maybe not even it's about maybe not even letting go of intergenerational trauma, and that letting go of things and not looking back is the answer to the traumas of the past, that sort of thing. And that's a very serious message to sort of delineate from a movie of this kind, but that is what I think that they're going for. That being said, this movie is such a surrealist experience that it could very well be like that the director turns around and goes, no, that's not what I was going for at all. There was actually no message in this movie whatsoever. And I would probably be like, all right, yeah, I can believe that. The performance that Nicolas Cage is putting on here, from what I've seen, which isn't very much, has to be one of the best things I've seen from him. And as I say, it's one of the best things I've seen this year. For me, it's probably what right now. I don't think the list is very strong for 2025. I'm looking at Nosferatu, We Live in Time, Sinners, and this. I want to see The Shrouds by David Cronenberg. I haven't gotten around to that yet, but I overall don't think that this list for this year is very strong. But this is probably maybe my favourite performance. But I also think that there's a bit of recency bias in there. I haven't seen Nosferatu, obviously, since the start of the year. We Live in Time, same. There are, in my opinion, more good performances floating about than there are good movies. Like, I'm not sure that We Live in Time is an excellent movie. It's a movie I enjoyed a lot and I took a lot from, and I think it's a very, fucked up movie that did affect me in some sense. But with that being said, I think its performances elevate it and take it to another level that had Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh not had such palpable and almost energy that you can touch, like reach through the screen and touch, I'm not sure that film would be as good as I actually believe it is. So yes, there's very good performances this year. I just don't know if there's a lot of great movies floating about. And Nicolas Cage, in my opinion, is delivering one of the best. If you don't like surrealist movies and you don't appreciate some sense of overacting, then you're not going to enjoy this. I hope more people will see, but I'm not entirely confident of that happening, because it was hard to sell David Lynch films when he was alive and making films. How do you sell films that you describe as Lynchian? That is a pretty hard thing to do. This is a performance that is, darkly comic, but also self-serious in a way that the character doesn't know he's taking something too seriously that he shouldn't, and he should probably, like I said at the start, he should probably just calm down, and things will start to work out a lot better for him. And this sort of degeneration of a man from a wealthy businessman to a homeless vagrant who eventually shoots himself on the beach. It's something that is in some way very fitting for Nicolas Cage. Playing a wealthy businessman and also playing a vagrant shouldn't come this naturally to an actor in the same film. Not, playing a wealthy businessman over here in film A and a homeless vagrant over here in film B. I can understand that. But that degeneration of, like, every scene, Nicolas Cage is coming down a level and is getting more depraved. Or, there is also, of course, the argument of, has he always been like this? That sort of thing, I don't think, comes naturally to many actors, of going, yes, well, now I'm playing a businessman, and then, I'm playing a homeless vagrant. A lot of actors, especially modern actors now, they're playing one thing through a movie continuously, and there isn't a lot of arc. I know it's a bit ironic, considering I've just said that the character is self-serious and Nicolas Cage is deliberately overacting, but it is refreshing when we get a movie like this, where a character is going on an arc and a serious character is able to portray that. Because although I loved Sinners, and Michael B. Jordan is great as both of those characters, I'm not really sure that the protagonists are going on an arc. Michael B. Jordan's twin characters, Smoke and Stack, are they going on an arc in that film? Are they changing? I'm not really sure. I feel like they're pretty much the same characters the entire movie, and that's somewhat of a drawback on that film. It's not a great drawback because I really do love that film, but I think it's very rare now with, pockets of community sort of developing around directors and directors becoming a personality off screen so much that, like, you'll have a community of, let's say, 500,000 people who will watch every film that comes out from a certain director, that the performances on screen are almost undercut by those directors and by the writers and the musicians that make the soundtrack. It is so nice, in my opinion, that in this film, everything has been centered around Nicolas Cage, because the filmmakers behind the scenes have understood quite clearly that he is the center of attention in this film. No one's here to see fancy directing or complex writing that doesn't benefit and serve his performance. If it doesn't serve his performance, it's irrelevant in this film. And that's so refreshing to see, in my opinion, when in many ways the directors are the superstars more than the actors. So I won't talk very much about the writing when it centers around Nicolas Cage, because I've already talked about his humor in the film and his self-seriousness, and a lot of that comes from the script. There's a very strong script here, at least for the first sort of 2/3, I would say. What I will say, however, is that the film, as it understands that Nicolas Cage is the main center of attention, gives almost no dialogue to other characters, and when it does, it's very limited. As I said at the start of the review, the characters on the beach, the locals, center around this phrase, don't live here, don't surf here, and that almost serves as like, Nicolas Cage is here, he has to overcome this obstacle, and that is represented by that phrase and that phrase alone. And it's such a smart thing to do, to sum up the obstacles in Nicolas Cage's way by that simple phrase, because you can say it 2 or 3 times and then just boom, we're back to Nicolas Cage. And that is such a smart thing to do, in my opinion, to understand no one's here to see what this Australian actor or character has to say. They're here to watch Nicolas Cage. So let's sum up what we have to say about them very quickly, and then let's get back to it. And that's such a smart thing to do. And what I will actually say is that all of the side actors, particularly the actors on the beach, the locals, and the one-off sort of characters that appear to have a sort of maybe 2 to 5 minute scene with Nicolas Cage, all of those actors sell what they're doing. They sell their lines very well. And in my opinion, I wasn't aware of any of these actors. They might be big in Australia, but I'm not sure. Can't verify that. But they sell it very well. It's effective, and it gives something to Nicolas Cage to bounce off with for 2-3 minutes, and then he's back on his own. And it really enhances the film, in my opinion. And again, it sort of furthers this degeneration of Nicolas Cage by giving him someone to talk to, and progressively the people that he is talking to go more and more, are you okay? Can we do something to help you? Can we give you some food? And that's really a worthwhile thing to sort of bed into this film, to give those actors time with limited dialogue. And again, it all centers on Nicolas Cage. It is all about how can we enhance Nicolas Cage's performance in this film. I think that's really worthwhile. Maybe the biggest drawback I have on this film, and it's not even a major drawback, I wouldn't say, is the second half of the film, particularly the final third. So maybe the final 25 minutes, I would say. It sort of sheds its surrealist tone, I would say, if quite a lot, that it's sort of bed in and got the audience used to over that first hour 10 hour 15 minutes, and it replaces that with story development, with contextualization, and with legitimate and sincere conversations between characters, particularly Nicolas Cage and Scott Calloway. I'm not sure of the actor's name. It has several conversations between those two actors and others. Whilst I understand in some sense or why that is there, because it would almost feel like there was an unnatural ending to if you didn't have that. In some sense, it does take away from what I have already said are the best parts of this film, the tone and Nicolas Cage's performance. Because those things aren't given the sort of satisfying ending that they deserve, the film, it sort of comes down slightly, and ultimately the story just isn't very interesting. And, you know, you sort of end the final scene on a surrealist moment, and then I'm sort of sat there going, what was that, 20 minutes towards the end for? If you end the film on a surrealist note, then just continue that the entire way through. It's something that I have an issue with, but it is also one of those things that I look at and think that I possibly, on rewatches of this movie, will have less of an issue with that. Particularly the fact that this movie is only an hour and 40 minutes, and that I would say takes up maybe only 20 minutes of the movie. And if you're getting a modern movie where only 20 minutes is dedicated to the development of story, I will take that personally, because the majority of movies aren't experimenting with a surrealist tone. They are bogged down in explaining and expanding and extrapolating its story, because a lot of films, modern films, are worried that if they don't do that, you won't get the message of what they're talking about. Yes, I have a slight issue with that. It's a slight drawback. It takes me out of the movie for about 20 minutes, but then it ends on a quite surrealist note anyways, so I don't have a major issue with it, but I would be lying if I said it didn't take me out of it for a bit. Very quickly, let's end on the directing. I'm going to sound like a broken record. The directing is simplistic. It emphasizes that the entire movie is about Nicolas Cage. It, you know, sets the tone around him very well, and it does that with sort of the environment, and it does it, I would say, chiefly with the music. The music feels, again, self-serious, but one of the excellent decisions in this movie is that, yes, the music is serious, but it also, almost counterintuitively, but I think deliberately, makes the film funnier. And that's a very hard thing to do. If Nicolas Cage had been bad in the movie, but the music emphasized a funny tone, it would have seemed like it was making fun of Nicolas Cage. But because those two things work so well together, and quite clearly the director and the actor were on the same page throughout production of this film, it combines to make a really satisfying watch and a really satisfying sort of bond between Nicolas Cage and the music, where you feel almost like Nicolas Cage's character, the surfer, has a backing track throughout the movie and throughout his life that existed before this movie. You feel like this music probably just was following him around like a shadow. That's a very hard tone to sort of master. It's a very hard sort of thing to do, to almost develop a bond between one of the actors and one of the things that we're not even looking at. It's the music. It's not an actor and another actor. It's an actor and them being in sync with the music. Music that obviously isn't played on set. That music is probably being developed after the film is finished. That's a really incredible thing to do. And I really, really applaud Lorcan Finnegan for matching that tone. And I think it's a really impressive thing that he's done with the music. Like I say, I think a lot of the other aspects of his directing is quite simple. I think that a lot of the camera work, whilst at times it is impressive, there are, a couple zoom in effects on Nicolas Cage's face that I think are really effective and again enhances that comedic tone. I think that at times there are some angles where I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting to see that in this film. But overall, again, it is all there to make you aware that you are watching a surrealist movie where everything could just be happening in his head, or maybe not. And once again, a lot of directors now make themselves more of the on-screen personality than the actors they're working with, and I have supreme respect and admiration for Lorcan Finnegan in understanding I'm just here to direct. He's the center of attention. He's the one in front of the camera. Go look at him. I'm not here to wow you necessarily with fancy camera angles. This is a character study of a man who is going through something quite sad and depressing, but we should also laugh at it. He sets the tone with the music, some nice camera angle. That's it. So, the other thing that I think is really impressive, again, sort of relates to the tone, and that is the environment. And I think Lorcan Finnegan sets up the environment really well in this movie. He makes it, particularly with a filter that I would assume is applied to the camera, or just Australia looks like this, I suppose. And that is that the environment that Nicolas Cage is in looks hot, it looks dehydrating, it looks oppressive in some sense, and it even looks like a place where you could go insane. It looks like it would induce insanity on a sane person. How do we convince you that this guy is in something terrible? This could be all in his mind. This might be real. It might be half real, half in his head. Watch and find out, and then make your own decision. It is all geared towards that. And the environment, in my opinion, makes you question whether or not this is something that he's conjured up in his mind out of nostalgia, or whether this is something that genuinely could induce a person to a form of psychosis. And that is something, again, that I think, I keep saying it, but genuinely the thing I have the most admiration for Lorcan Finnegan in this movie for is setting up a tone and then just stepping and receding into the background. And I think he does that so well, and it's something that I wish some more directors would do, is just go, yeah, we're here to set a tone and then let the actors work. There's a lot of directors now in sort of a Tarantino or a Nolan style who are there to go, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's much more of a systemic and a mechanical form of acting, and I'm not sat here shitting on those directors. I have respect for them and I admire them and love them. But nevertheless, there is something freeing about watching a film like this where I don't feel like Finnegan is in every scene. It feels like Nicolas Cage is in every scene, and that's what I'm here for. And some light criticisms to end on, but I don't have very much to say about these. I think some of the editing, particularly at the start of the film, is a bit nauseous. It feels like TikTok editing where it's like, 100 cuts a minute. It's not that bad, but it is something that I thought was worth mentioning, because at one point early on, it took me out for a couple of seconds and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is really fucking going to make me sick. It's going to make me feel like the surfer. And then the other thing that I will say, and they get rid of this, I would say, at about the 30-35 minute mark of the movie. The first third of this movie, Nicolas Cage spends a lot of his time in a car and on his phone, and I found that a bit annoying. I sort of agree with Robert Eggers on this, which is that filming a phone is really annoying, and for me, the viewer, I go to the cinema and watch films so that I don't look at my phone, so that I can enjoy something outside of a 30-second clip. So watching a film and then the first 30 minutes of the film, the character's on his phone the entire time, I was like, oh, that's a bit annoying. But again, it's a light criticism. It's not a major issue. It's not like I'm watching Unfriended, where it's literally the entire thing is on a laptop. It's not as bad as something like that. I was aware of it. It annoyed me slightly. That's a very light criticism I have of this movie. Overall, I would say if you haven't seen this movie, go out and see it now. If you're not interested in Thunderbolts, that's a big thing in the cinema right now. Go and see this movie. I think it's really worthwhile seeing. It's a really, really enjoyable experience. But on the other hand, if you're not a fan of Nicolas Cage, I can't imagine you're going to like this movie because it all centers on him. It's clearly a film made by someone that was a fan of Nicolas Cage as a kid and as a teenager and as a young man and has gone, I want to work with him. And I applaud Lorcan Finnegan for what he's done here, just stepping into the frame to set the tone and then immediately receding from it and allowing Nicolas Cage to really flourish and blossom on screen. It's a really freeing film that feels like it steps outside of the machinations of the current Hollywood industry, and almost, I would say, it doesn't even really fit into like a A24 film. It doesn't feel like anything like that. It feels like something entirely different, where you are literally just watching a character study. This is about one man, he's on one beach, nothing else. If you like Nicolas Cage, you'll like this film. That's the bluntest and shortest way I can say that. Thank you for watching this far. Comment, like, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok, everything down below. Videos on screen around me. Thank you for watching. Bye.